Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for joining us, whether you're listening, watching, however you're joining us. We appreciate you for taking the time to tune in today. My name is Caleb Talley. I'm the Director of Marketing at the Startup Junkie Foundation. I'm joined by my co-host, Startup Junkie founder, Jeff Amarine,
Hey, everybody.
and our intern extraordinaire, Matthew Ward. Today's episode is brought to you by Tiny Capital. Tiny Capital knows that selling your business can be a miserable task, months of negotiation, legal fees, and you run the risk of watching new owners trash the business that you built. Tiny was founded to be the buyer that they wish they could have sold to, fair, fast, and founder friendly. If you're looking for a new home for your internet-based business, reach out to Tiny Capital. They'll respond in a day or two, make an offer in a week, and close a straightforward deal in about a month. Get in touch with our friends at Tiny Capital at tinycapital.com/startup junkies, and you can find that link in our show notes. All right, now that the bills are paid, I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Mr. Robert Wallace. Robert is a world-renowned entrepreneur, author, speaker, business consultant. He's got more than 30 years of business experience, spanning engineering, energy, IT. He blends decades of research and practical real-world advice to educate and inspire entrepreneurs and executives worldwide. We're thrilled to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Caleb. My pleasure.
I know we will definitely want to get into your journey, and I know our listeners are interested to hear that. But I'm going to just kick us off by just asking you, what's on your mind today?
Well, I'm hopeful for our country. I was in Washington, D.C. Last week when we had the insurrection there in Washington, D.C. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that our country can turn the corner and can get back together again. So that's what's on my mind, quite frankly. And we've got the inauguration tomorrow here in D.C. And so I'm excited about the future.
Well, hopeful is a good thing to be.
Amen,
speaking of being hopeful and having hope, I've read kind of your backstory and your journey from where you came from to where you are today. And if you would, just tell us about that journey.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my story is not unlike many other stories of people who were born into a difficult situation. I was born and raised in the housing projects of Baltimore City. And my mom was a janitor. My father was a laborer. Had 5 brothers in a very tough neighborhood. And we struggled like many Americans do, who have similar backgrounds. We struggled as a family. My mom was a recovering alcoholic. I'm not sure if any of you can relate to that. But mom my older brothers went to Vietnam, and the pressure of life and that just drove mom to seek out escape, through alcoholism. And so she struggled, but by God's grace, she was able to turn the corner, and she turned her back on, alcoholism, and went to college in her 40s, got her degree to teach. I went back again in her 50s, got her master's degree in teaching, and in her 60s started her PhD. And she became a very famous teacher in Baltimore City, and she taught what was called back then special ed kids. So Mama made a big difference. She turned her life around, and she is a case. She's my hero, and her and Daddy, and case studies. But it's all about 3 things that your parents probably taught you. I know my parents taught me. There are 3 things that Mom and Dad taught us to be successful in life. Number 1 was faith in God. Number 2 was education, the importance of education. And 3 was hard work. So my brothers, all of us are successful in our own right. My older brothers are career military men. They had distinguished careers in the Navy and the Air Force, Marines. I was the first son to go to college and not go into the service. So I'm the oddball of the family, but that's what I did. But the same 3 principles that I'm sure your parents taught you and mine taught me apply to being successful, I believe.
What was it like to, and thank you for that. And I think we all really appreciate your journey. We're in a part of the country that has oftentimes been burdened with low expectations based on the geography of where we are and the history of the Ozarks, and it's not dissimilar from Appalachia. So we really appreciate your words there. When you began to venture out into your career, what led you towards entrepreneurship? What was the spark?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jeff. You know, Jeff, I tell you, if I peel back the onion, right, for me, what drove me was I was just tired of being in poverty, right? I was tired of being in poverty. I was tired of us going to bed at night and not sure what we'd have for breakfast the next morning. I was tired of mom and daddy being unable to pay the utility bill, so we had to study by candlelight. I was tired that we didn't have heat in the winter many times. We had to huddle, put our coats on and huddle in the bed together just to stay warm. I was just tired. I was tired of being poor. And I remember having a conversation with mom and daddy about this, about being poor, about not having resources. I said, Mom and Daddy, I know that you're doing the best you can. And Mama would say, yeah, we are. But she said, you know what, we may be struggling today, but that doesn't mean we have to stay this way. It means that we have, in this country, you have the ability to do better, right? If you do the three things I told you to do, son, and you'll be able to make a better life. And Mom and Daddy were correct. So I think, Jeff, for me, it was just, I wanted to live a better life. And I felt, I could have gone the corporate route. I mean, I worked for IBM, I worked at Procter & Gamble, at DuPont as an engineer, and I was making a very good living, Jeff, and moving up the ladder. But I felt there was more of me that I could give than I was being allowed to give in the corporate environment. And I said, you know what, I can do better. I can do better. And so I left IBM and started my own companies.
How supportive were the people around you? I mean, were your mom and daddy alive at that point? Were they supportive of that move, or were they worried that you took that?
Well, you know, Jeff, I tell you, when I went to talk to my dad, I said, Dad, I'm leaving IBM. He said, you leaving what? And I said, Daddy, I'm leaving IBM. He said, boy, you don't leave no job at IBM. I said, Daddy, but I want to be an entrepreneur. He said, what's that? And so, Daddy and Mommy supported me, but they didn't quite understand what was driving me.
Yeah.
Because they said, you got this great job at IBM, you're married, you got 3 kids, you're doing great, son. Why would you want to, throw all that away? Throw it away, right?
Yeah.
And I said, Mom and Daddy, I have a different dream, Mom and Daddy, and so I need to pursue that dream. So once I got into it, Jeff, they were supportive. Once they understood and they could see the vision, then they were on board. But the first step, my father said, you are crazy to leave that IBM job.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation. My folks were both Depression era and grew up, and my dad grew up in Central Kansas in the Dust Bowl. And I won't tell you all the stories that what they had to do to get through the Dust Bowl and the Depression. But when I said, well, I was a Naval Academy graduate, but I took my commission in the Air Force, and my dad had been career Air Force. And when I told him, it's like, first, I'm getting out of the Air Force. He'd been career. He's like, oh, you're going to get laid off. You're going to be unemployed. And then second, I worked at Westinghouse, which you should be familiar with there in the Baltimore area.
So did I.
Great career going there at the Electronic Systems Group. And when I left there to say, well, I'm going to go do my own thing, start my own company, it was like, you have got to be out of your mind. Why would you, get rid of your 401k and the track you're on and all that? So I think entrepreneurial people just tend to be wired a little differently. We're not afraid. That's true, Jeff. We're not afraid, maybe.
That's true. And I will tell you, Jeff, you mentioned Naval Academy. My partner, when I started the company, was also a Naval Academy graduate. He was class of 76. His name was Rick Samuels. He left the Naval Academy and went to Pensacola Flight School. And flew an A6 intruders off of aircraft carriers. So you Naval Academy guys, you're a special breed in my book. So
thank you. I was glad to graduate. I just surviving the process was the first step.
That's a good background, Jeff. Good environment. I have done some lecturing down there on leadership, and that's a wonderful, wonderful asset our nation has. So I applaud you for that.
Well, thank you.
I'd be interested in, you talk about that, your drive there, wanting to, I guess, put yourself out of poverty and that hunger. How did you channel that into founding? Was the first company you founded Bith Group?
Yeah, well, you know what, Caleb? I tell you, the truth be told, I had started 5 companies that all failed before I founded Bith Group. So the truth be told, it took me a while, right? But you know what I really maintained, Caleb, and I think my father really instilled that in my brothers and I, is the ability to dream, Caleb, the ability to dream. And I think that too often, as we age and get older, we lose the ability to dream. And one thing my father instilled in us was not to lose that ability. And so I've been a dreamer, Caleb. I've always dreamt about things that maybe not were, but that could be. And that dream, and the energy of a dream, there's the energy there that motivates us and keeps us energetic and focused and intentional. And for me, that ability to dream. I mean, I'm dreaming now. We're as you age, Caleb, your dream, it transforms, and it's like I tell people all the time, you start with one dream, but I guarantee you, before you take your last breath on earth, there will be other dreams that were part of that initial dream. And so I have a dream. I mean, we do mission work around the world. We've helped to build churches and hospitals and clinics, water systems in Africa and Latin America, Southeast Asia, and I still have dreams to do more work in that space, to use technology and entrepreneurship as an engine to improve the quality of life for humanity. So when I go to countries like Zimbabwe or Botswana or Brazil, whatever, I'm bringing technical solutions in terms of building buildings, putting in solar systems, putting in water systems, but I'm also trying to transform or transfer skills in entrepreneurship. And then because I'm a Christian, I am also importing the mission focus. And so there's a couple of agendas we have as we travel, but to be truthful, that's what we do. And that's what excites me and motivates me.
Robert, what would you say is your why? You've touched on a lot of different points and what motivates you, but is there something internal or core to the reason why you wake up and make such an impact on the world?
Well, Matthew, you probably have already sensed that I'm a Christian businessman, and I don't hide that. I'm not ashamed of it. Some people are offended by it. I don't care. That's who Bob Wallace is. You want to know about Bob Wallace? That's who I am. It's what I believe. And so Matthew, my why is using the gifts that I've been given, using the blessings that I have been given to make a difference in the lives of people. See, I'm not, and I teach these young entrepreneurs, making money is great. I mean, that's kind of like the fuel that allows you to keep going. I get that. But that cannot be the only outcome, in my view, that you seek. And so for me, Matthew, it is, how can I use this wealth? How can I use this access? How can I use this authority and power to make the lives of people better? And if I'm not doing that, then what good am I, right? What value do I have? And so for me, Matthew, it is, how do I use these blessings to make life better, impact on their lives? And that's what drives me. I've been blessed to a point now, Matthew, where, chances are, I mean, of course, catastrophe can occur, but chances are I'm going to have food on my table. Chances are I will have a roof over my head. Chances are I will have clothing on my back. So chances are I'm going to be okay, right? So beyond that now, what impact can I have? And that's, Matthew, what drives me, is where can I have the next impact? I give you an example, Matthew. So we in our energy business, we're into, you may have seen, in Bith Energy, we design and build, we're engineers, so we design and build large-scale solar energy plants. Well, we're pushing now, and you probably will see a story on Bloomberg about this probably in a few weeks. We're pushing now to implement what's called community solar projects around the country. Now, why is that important? is important to me because it allows low and middle income families to benefit from from solar and renewable energy technologies. So they not only can help us reduce the carbon footprint on our planet, but they can also reduce their power bills and save money in the process. Now, we build plants for corporations, for DOD, on military bases, and they get the benefit. I'm talking about now, Matthew, how can we take that benefit and focus it on low-income communities and middle income communities? That's what I'm talking about. How you take what you've been given that's a blessing, and then you push it back out to benefit a wider array of people.
It's interesting. So is that kind of like a net metering deal, like community solar?
Exactly, Caleb. A virtual net metering opportunity. So we've developed, Caleb. So we don't do residential. So we do utility scale. So we do nothing, although we've done a 0.5 megawatt plant in the beginning, but now our deal is at least 2 megawatt plants. So we've built, Caleb, so far about 60 megawatts of solar plants. Our community solar projects, there are about 10 of them, and they are about 2 megawatt plants per plant. But again, as you know, in the community solar model, you have to, you provide that benefit to people who don't own their homes, or who can't afford to put solar on their roofs, or who are low income and can't afford, don't have the credit background to benefit from it. That's the market that we're focusing on now. So we're in the process now raising a $250 million fund in order to finance low and medium income solar projects around the country.
And do the cities or the municipalities end up being do they secure, who provides the security around that from the financial side? You raise the money on the fund, but is it the city that it's ultimately paying you back, or a municipality?
No, it's not. That's one possibility, Jeff. That's one model. But our model is by raising the fund. See, up until now, Jeff, our business model has been, we develop, we design, we build, we're engineers. And then we hand it over to the investor group, right? Our model moving forward, our business model has pivoted. We're now going to become the financier. So we're on Wall Street raising the money, the $250 million. But our market is to provide solar resources for low and middle income families to benefit from. And the model, Jeff, you could have a model where the city or the municipality could own the asset, but in our model, that won't be the case. We will end up owning the asset.
So you'll in effect be a utility.
That's exactly right.
I gotcha. Exactly and you provide the battery backup and all that as well, the battery systems that go along with it?
We can, Jeff. We don't do that much because it's so expensive still.
Sure.
So it makes the price to build too high at this point.
Right.
But as you know, Jeff, as the cost of technology continues to decrease, we'll reach that point where battery technology is financially viable. And then we'll probably build every plant will have a battery backup system.
I know you have a lot going on, and you're involved in a lot. Are the solar projects, is that the most exciting thing in the portfolio right now? The thing that energizes you the most?
I think I'll pivot to becoming a financier in the solar space that will focus on providing solar, not just solar, Jeff, but any renewable energy technology that will benefit low and middle income communities. That's what's driving me now.
So you could do wind or geothermal as well as part of that if it makes sense.
Absolutely, it could be just fusion. There's a lot of emerging that come under renewable technologies that I think are within grasp of being commercialized. Solar is a safe one. We know how to do that. We've done it. The numbers make sense. It pencils. So that will be where we start. But that doesn't mean we won't pivot to emerging technologies, that can benefit urban environments and lower middle income communities.
Sure. Fantastic.
That's a good point.
And you touched on there for a second. I know it's easy to, champion successes, but you touched on earlier, some missteps early on before Bith Energy or Bith Group. Those missteps are most often where you learn the most. Be interested to know what lessons you learned from those early entrepreneurial failures, I guess.
Oh my goodness, Caleb, how much time do you have? Hey, Caleb, I'll give you three things, maybe more. I'll give you three things. Okay. Number one, Caleb, is I wish I had learned to focus sooner. When I started out, I thought I was a smart guy. I was certainly a hardworking guy. And I figured, man, I could do all these things. I could it's so exciting. And it's like being a kid in a candy store, right? And I want to do all these things. And I tried it. And I would say that maybe part of the reason why my first 5 deals failed, because I was trying to do too much. So I think number one lesson, Caleb, is focus. And I tell young people who are starting out, even older people who are entrepreneurs, focus. Focus on something that you can be, that you're really good at, that you can be in the top 3% of that field, and focus. All right, that's the first thing I say. The second thing I would say, Caleb, lesson I learned that I recommend not to anybody really who wants to become an entrepreneur is learn early in your career, learn how to create alliances and strategic partnerships. Boy, I tell you, I could have gotten so much further than I am today if I had learned that lesson as a younger man. That, there's an old, I think it's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go together. And I wish I had learned that lesson when I was a younger man. But some of us, a little older, it takes longer to learn things. I think I'm in that category. Yeah. And then thirdly, I would say, Caleb, it is, don't be afraid to use other people's money. Again, the mistake I made, Caleb, was, I didn't want to owe anybody anything. I wanted to be in control. So I used my own money, a second mortgage in my house, and I said, I'm going to do it myself. And I mean, the benefit is so today, by God's grace, we don't have any debt. I don't owe anybody anything. I could walk away from this thing and make a few bucks and be done. But on the other hand, though, Caleb, maybe if I had more capital early on, I could be a bigger company. I could have been much further ahead. So I think, Caleb, those are the 3 lessons that I really harp on in terms of young entrepreneurs who are starting out or who are thinking about this process. Those 3 things I think will make a difference.
It's great insights, and having been through 9 startups myself and not always been successful. Some work, some don't work, some you kind of kick to the curb. I really appreciate your insights there. I mean, I tended to be a shiny object guy. I love starting things, and I got bored quickly, and because there was something else that was more interesting. But I also know that you're a published author and you're a speaker. In all this busy career, how were you able to take time to actually get some books written? How were you able to do that? We're publishing one here on the 28th of January, the first one I've written with the co-author that talks about our journey. And it took me forever to finally get up the nerve and sort of the motivation to push my way through it. And if I hadn't had a partner, I wouldn't have gotten through it. But you've been prolific. How have you managed to do that?
Well, I would tell you, Jeff, the first one is the most difficult one. So you've already, you're more than halfway there now. Your second and third books are going to be a piece of cake. I can promise you that, right? Because I made so many mistakes in my first book. So I have actually written 8 books, Jeff. 6 have been published. And I would tell you something, and I'm not being funny here. I'm being truthful. Part of my secret sauce is I don't sleep. So I'm not kidding, Jeff. Since I was in graduate school, right? When I was, prior to graduate school, I was okay. But I got to grad school for my MBA at Dartmouth, and and I just got in this habit of getting 4, maybe 5 hours a night, Jeff, if I'm lucky. If I'm lucky, right? And so far, guys, I think I'm okay. You know what I mean? They say you get 8 or 9 hours a night. I ain't nowhere near that. I think I'm okay, Jeff. But so Jeff. So what I'm saying to you is that I find my most productive writing time is from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Wow.
So every morning I'm up about 3 a.m. I have my Bible devotion, I talk to God, and then I'm writing. And one thing I try to do, Jeff, is to set metrics for myself. So I will say every day. So I have a book project. I have one book that's coming out. It's called "Let God Be God," right? Using God's disruptive power to change the world, right? So my books have been like a cross between, entrepreneurship and the spiritual dimensions to business and success. And I've made that intersection, and I will continue to do that. But what I find, though, Jeff, my best hours for writing is 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I think you'll find, if you haven't already, there's certain times of the day where you're going to be more productive.
Sure.
As you're writing. And those are my hours. And then I set metrics. I say, okay, today I'm going to write 3 pages, or I'm going to write 5 pages. I set a metric, and then I hold myself to that. And that allows me, Jeff, to keep producing what I'm seeing in the market, what I'm getting from my MBA students. It gives me an indication of where's the sweet spot of knowledge that the industry is looking for. And those are the things that I write about, if that makes sense.
No, that's great advice and inspiration there. And I don't think I've been hardcore enough. I need to push myself a little harder. based on your example, I think I need to turn it up a notch.
You're fine, Jeff. You're fine. Go follow my lead.
That's great.
I'm curious, when do you go to bed? What time do you go to bed?
Caleb, it depends. I mean, probably around 11. I try to get my news in. We have 5 kids, and we got, soon to be 9 grandkids. And, I have a big family, growing family. My family's international. I have 1 daughter-in-law from China, 1 from Australia. So we have family all over the world. We are a truly international family. And so we have a good time with that, Caleb. But I probably 11 to 12 at midnight on average.
Well, it's kind of like was it Da Vinci that slept, like 30 minutes at a time and accomplished.
Well, I tell you a funny story. I was in Zimbabwe speaking at an economic conference, and it was one of the highlights of my life. The people I met at this conference were just amazing. I mean, Nelson Mandela and all the other people, leaders of that great continent. I met this one man who was I think he was not prime minister, but he was a high-ranking official from the country of Madagascar. And we became friends. And one evening we were having dinner, and I was sharing that I was concerned that I don't get much sleep. And even when I tried, I've tried Ambien, I've tried the other stuff, even those things don't help me sleep. I just don't sleep. And so I was complaining. I said, well, gee, I'm getting concerned. Maybe I'm hurting myself health-wise. And he looked at me, he said, no, I don't think so. He said, Bob, he said, and this was his philosophy, and whether it's true or not, I accept it because it made me feel better. He said, Bob, no, you're fine. He said that there are just some people that God gives that kind of energy to because they have a special mission to accomplish. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I accept it, I receive it, and it made me feel better.
Awesome. Well, Matthew, you look like you had a question.
Yeah, I had just one last question. You have all these amazing things going on, and you have this pretty much this guide to how you're living. You're doing a great job at it. What's the future look like for you in terms of impact, your businesses, et cetera?
Yeah, Matthew, that's a great question, Matthew. And now I look at you. I know we just met, but I look at you and I can tell you're a young man. So what's my future? My future is to impart as quickly as I can as much knowledge and wisdom and mentorship into young people like you and Caleb and Jeff. You too, you look young to me too, Jeff. All y'all look young. Is to impart as much knowledge and wisdom as I can. I believe, Matthew, life is short. I cannot tell you how many funerals I have officiated and went to this year. even in COVID. Life is short. And so I have a sense of a purpose and intensity to do what we're doing now, which is to pass on to you, Matthew, and young people, pass on this knowledge, pass on this experience, whatever I've learned that can help you. I want to get it out there and get it to young folks so that the next generation is better prepared than we were, right? And you can take this ball and run with it, right? That's what I need to do in my life, whatever time I have left.
You know, we usually, the last question we usually ask is, you know, to kind of, if you have an opportunity to go back in time and give your younger self advice, what would that be? You kind of already touched on that. And we talked about the earlier stuff. But, you know, if you had an opportunity right now to whoever's listening, whoever's watching on YouTube or listening on, you know, Apple Podcast, to give that piece of advice, just one piece of advice or one piece of nugget of knowledge you want to impart, what would that be right now?
Absolutely, Caleb, that's a great question. In 2018, I had the blessing that where I took a 6-month sabbatical from my business. And my wife and I, we got on a ship and we literally sailed around the world, right? We visited 35 to 40 countries. We had about 100 ports of call. It was an amazing journey, Caleb, amazing journey. And I learned so much from that because I was using it to work on my next book, which is going to be on global entrepreneurship. Because I wanted, you know, I've been focusing on entrepreneurship from an American perspective, right? Which is great. I mean, we're the leader. So, okay, that's great. But I think that the emerging world, there's a lot of learning there that I think we can help with and that we can learn from. And I would say, Caleb, in closing, what I learned from that journey was this, and I think I would leave it with this, and that is, it was the most humbling experience I've ever had. I mean, just a Navy guy, he's probably sailed the world and seen these places that I've seen, but I'm not a Navy guy. I'm just a lowly engineer just trying to make it. And I tell you, it was a humbling experience. And what I learned was how little I really know, right? I learned how little I really know. See, sometimes we think we know and we have the answers. And what I learned was, boy, I don't know that much. There's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot that I need to learn. And there's a lot of people who may not on paper seem like they can add value to what I'm trying to do, but they can. And so the humility is, let me shut my mouth. Let me engage as much as I can, Caleb, meet as many people as I can. And when you meet them, Caleb, shut your mouth and listen to them. Listen to their stories. Listen to their struggles. Listen to their journey. And I did that on this global trip. And man, I tell you, man, it changed my life. I came back to the States. I haven't been the same person. I'm not the same Bob Wallace. I'm not the same Bob Wallace. And so I would say, Caleb, those are the things I would say. Shut your mouth, engage as often as you can, and listen to people. You'll be amazed what you learn.
A lot of value in active listening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know you've been an inspiration to our audience, and I've really enjoyed learning more about your journey. If our audience wants to find out more about what you're up to, the books you're writing, what's the best way for them to learn more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. So Jeff, they can go to www.robertwallace, and Wallace is spelled WALLACE.com, robertwallace.com. If they want to know about our IT business or our energy business, it's www.bithgroup, and that's B as in Bravo, I as in India, T Tango, H Harry Group.com, or bithenergy.com, 2 separate companies.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It was an honor, and best of luck. And don't worry too much about not getting sleep. We're glad you're as productive as you are.
Nice, yeah.
Take care. Thank you. You bet.
Thank you. I've enjoyed you guys. Thank you very much.
You too.
Bye.